All right, before I get too far into my introduction, I want to preface this with I'm a software guy. And this has been an interesting experience, but I kind of felt like I should introduce myself like the beginning of an Alcoholics Anonymous. Hi, I'm Scott, and I'm a software guy, as we start this, because it's been very, very different. But I'm Scott Engel from Mercury Systems, focused on Mercury Mission Systems. And Mission Systems are the CES product line that Mercury recently acquired. A CES been acquired, so think about that or remember that as a theme for future discussions. But what Mercury Mission Systems is all about is bringing the mission-critical decision-making capability in the product portfolio. And we really tried to adhere to the Voodoo theme, Jerry, and I think by the end of this, you're going to really regret this. So. Well, I was worried about presenting on the second day that all the really good voodoo jokes would be taken, but luckily, only the bad ones have. So, and I'm going to continue to add to that capability or that function here. So, Voodoo Curses. I'm going to talk about what Voodoo Curses are we going to talk about when we. How did I get there? Blew my punchline. The Voodoo Curses that you might encourage or encounter in safety critical development are really something that I call the Star Trek syndrome. And this is my presentation. I can take it anywhere. And so this is the result of the Voodoo Curses are a Star Trek syndrome, which is, everybody knows Captain Kirk's 5-year mission to boldly go where no man has gone before, and that's exactly what you do not want to do in a safety critical situation. You do not want to take the FAA or the ESA to somewhere that they've never been, and you certainly don't want to spend 5 years doing that. So it's really not the voodoo witch doctor that we're really worried about. It's Captain James T. Marley that is our really nemesis here. So that's what I'm really going to talk about today. And this is real. I spent 16 years at Wind River, and the first time that Wind River went through the certification process with the FAA, it was a very long and involved process. And again, when you're going somewhere that you've taken the FAA into a place they've never been, you never know what they're going to find interesting or compelling. And interesting and compelling, which by that I mean they're going to ask for a lot of detailed explanation and proof as to how the system works. And as an example, we never anticipate the FAA asking a million questions on the linker, but the FAA made us go through and prove that the output of the new linker actually did what it was supposed to do and as advertised. So we had never budgeted for that or planned for that, but it took us many, many weeks in order to go through that certification effort or that proof of that linker element. So as you're going through certification application or system with the FAA, you never know what they're going to go through or ask you to go improve and do things like that. So this presentation is about avoiding those curses and then eventually avoiding the Star Trek syndrome. So the curse number one, high integration costs. And again, have a unique perspective being a software guy, and in the cert world, in the certification systems, it's really more of a system play than a classic hardware only. So making sure that evidence for all of the components that you're bringing into this system are complete, and not only complete, but at the appropriate level. There's obviously 5 DAO levels, and because a vendor says I have a certifiable BSP or certifiable device driver, that doesn't mean that has been actually taken through certification to the level that you need. So you need to ask questions. You need to ask a lot of questions, actually. One of the common things, and I used to actually like it as a Wind River person, was they would say, do you have a BSP supporting this board? And we would say, yes. And that was the end of the conversation. But in reality, that conversation should have been much more thorough, much deeper. They should have been asking about what device drivers are supported in that BSP, to what levels of criticality, how complete is that. And for example, bootloaders and data loaders, things that you are going to need to actually field and deploy your system, but Wind River or Green Hills does not provide because they don't know enough about the hardware that will eventually be used. So they leave that as an exercise left up to the student, which is the customer, and that can actually be quite costly. Adding health management and health monitoring and BIT and things like that, those are a sign of the really complete software pieces or component pieces that really doing that research up front ensures that your integration costs are as low as they can be. Voodoo curse number 2, too many suppliers. Now it's very tempting to go out and pick the best of breed. And every time I see this slide, I now have to laugh because as John Bratton and I were kind of working on this, his spell check corrected it to best of bread. So from now on, every time I see this, I think of that 1970 album that my brother played on, I guess it was an 8-track at the time. So while there's surely a desire out there to pick the top vendor for any specific functionality, there's risk associated with that. And the risk is that sometimes those pieces, all they be great at what function they do, they sometimes don't play together, especially at the software level. But we know that with safety critical systems, the software is kind of a subset in general. So there's generally a very high possibility that these boards don't play all that well together. So although it sounds counterintuitive, getting one or fewer number of witch doctors in this case involved in the event actually saves you a lot of time and effort during integration. Number 3, managing obsolescence. So I think there was a good talk about that earlier. I don't remember your name. I'm an American, so I can't pronounce names with 2 consonants in a row. So, but it was a great discussion because this is critical when you're going through the long life cycle of a deployed search system. You are going to run into obsolescence. There's no doubt about it. So having a vendor that maniacally focuses and tracks obsolescence and then works with you as as a supplier on a plan for addressing that obsolescence. And one of the things that we do, I think that's really great, is being able to work directly with our customers, and we do semi-annual meetings with them focused on nothing but the obsolescence piece, and then working with our customers and providing a plan. We've actually been able to develop or produce 3 generations of boards that have all been plug and play in some instances with almost no integration cost to the customer. Number 4, upgradeability, planning for upgradeability. And I hope you get the subtle upgrading from the witch doctor to bones, keeping with the voodoo and the Star Trek. Now that's literary genius right there. I don't know if you understand that. But planning for upgradeability in the future, you know it's going to happen just like obsolescence. So making sure that you plan for that at the beginning to know where you can start adding IOs, adding increased horsepower on the CPU and things like that. One of the interesting pieces or architectures of the CES product line, the boards, is that the processor card is actually a mezzanine card. So it's very easy to take that processor and upgrade that processor. It's a nice design and focus on future upgradeability of that. And the last one we're going to talk about is one that the engineers or people making the choices for the list of vendors often don't consider, but I think it's really important. And that's kind of the financial strength or the robustness of the vendors. And CES was just acquired by Mercury. I saw a slide the other day with a Die4 listed in there. Can we think of any other, so for our audience participation time, can we name another board vendor or 2 or 3 or 10 that no longer exist? I heard 15. Wow! In that brief short time, it's a real risk, and you don't know this going in for a long project. You know, what's the future viability of a company that you're buying products with today? But you should be asking questions, and you should be looking at that from a perspective of we don't know what the future of this company, if its financial strength is weak, if it's not strong, then there's a good chance to get gobbled up by a bigger company next year, and then who knows what's going to happen. You lose control, or they lose control at least, of their product line and whether or not they're going to support that in the future. So it can add a great deal of risk. So these voodoo curses that we're trying to avoid, the goal of the presentation, though, is to turn that 5-year mission into a nice 3-hour tour. And the kind of joke there is that even though it's a nice 3-hour tour, that's going to meet some peril and difficulty because safety critical in general is never easy.